Hi, my name is Jane and welcome to today's episode. Today is a follow-up from last week where unfortunately I had audio issues. So I'm just going to touch on where we left off. And we were up to the third pillar, which was repair. So you may have heard of rupture and repair. If something happens with your child, it's acknowledging that rupture, whatever's transpired, and coming back to repair with them. And that might just mean naming it simply, not associating any shame with it, and perhaps apologizing and acknowledging of what has transpired and the fact that next time you will try not to do that again. Remember that children do experience safety differently. Words, proximity, space, these all matter, but it's not one size fits all with your child. One of the hardest things I get asked about from parents is the fact that something may have worked yesterday, but it's not working today. And to give you an example, it may be that they were having a bedtime routine and I asked them to go and brush their teeth, and I went with them and we did a little song and brushed our teeth, and they were great, and then we put our pajamas on and we were ready for bed. Whereas the next day, okay, let's go brush our teeth, sing our song, and nothing. There's no response, or there's an outburst or defiance. I'm not going to do that. I don't feel like brushing my teeth right now. So this becomes one of the hardest things because something is working and it might be working consistently for a while and then all of a sudden it stops working, or it might have worked the day before and it doesn't work the next day. So this isn't a regression within your child by any means, and it's also they're not manipulating you and they're not trying to coerce you by any means. It's that children develop and they grow in waves, so to speak. So they're going to go up and down. They're going to have different moods, different feeling states, just like we do as adults as well. So stress can accumulate for your child, and we have touched on this previously, but whatever they've been carrying with them throughout the day, whatever their activities have been, and again, different factors, numerous factors coming in, whether it be tiredness, hunger, that is going to have an impact on to their ability and where they're at by the time it might get to bedtime, or it might be the morning. They may not have slept very well, or they might be carrying a load from the day before, exhausted. So all these different factors are taken into account. And your child's capacity can fluctuate, just like we fluctuate as adults. So it can go up and down, and that's why sometimes what worked perfectly yesterday for you does not necessarily work the next day. Their skills haven't disappeared, and those skills that you're teaching them haven't disappeared, but their access to that regulation and their capacity to them have. Regulation first parenting is not permissive. So we're not just saying yes, yes, yes to our child. We still have our boundaries and they are very important, but regulation really matters, especially with their nervous system, because the boundaries will work best when your child is regulated and their nervous system feels safe enough to be held. Before we finish, I would just like to give you a couple of real life examples that we could work with. Now, I touched on this earlier, bedtime resistance. So let's just say bedtime is normally 7:30 p.m. and your child protests, but you hold the boundary and it goes pretty smoothly, which is great. Come the next night and you do exactly the same thing, 7:30 p.m., but suddenly it's gone into a full-blown meltdown. From the outside, it could look like inconsistency or defiance from your child. However, yesterday they may have been rested and regulated, whereas today they may have been overstimulated, overtired, or emotionally at capacity and full from that day. So the boundary stays the same, but the support around that boundary really needs to shift, and this is where you come in. So a good example of this might be slowing down the routine. What we did yesterday, let's do it today, but really slowly, and being there supporting your child throughout. It might entail potentially just sitting with them for a little bit longer, It might be reading the story and then maybe reading another story, or just sitting on their bed with them until they're feeling really calm and regulated within themselves through that co-regulation. And it also might be offering more connection with them as well, in whatever capacity that feels right for you and your child. Okay, another example might be leaving the park or a playground. So we did this yesterday and there was absolutely no problem. We told our child, okay, it's time to go, or we've given them our warning, we're leaving in 5 minutes, no problem. Today we do exactly the same, but there's a full-blown meltdown and tears and tantrums. A lot of parents might think they're testing me or they're being really manipulative, but your child might be dysregulated. They might be tired, they might be hungry, and they might just be overwhelmed with the transition of actually leaving the park and heading to the car or going home or whatever the next step is. So consistency looks like still holding the boundary and saying, yes, we are leaving, but it might be really slowing this down and offering connection with your child, and also acknowledging that they might be disappointed and you can understand that. However, the boundary still remains the same. So consistency doesn't actually mean ignoring the emotional experience that they're having by any means, but we're just shifting the way in which we approach it. Another scenario might be two siblings having a fight, let's just say over a toy. So the previous day you intervene and absolutely no problem. It's resolved pretty quickly. But then the next day, the same situation happens, you intervene, and then it amasses into a huge fight. Now, as we've touched on before, it's rarely about the actual toy. It's about the nervous system being dysregulated in that particular moment. And then they're co-regulating their dysregulated nervous systems with each other as well. Now, some possible factors for these might be that they're completely overstimulated, they're fatigued. It might be that they've experienced earlier stress within their day, whatever they've been doing, and it also that they just genuinely might be feeling a little bit disconnected at the time. So for you as the parent, it's about consistently prioritizing safety and separating the two children, and then coming back later and helping them to re-regulate. And that's when whatever transpired can be discussed and resolved as well. So it's very important to remember that the approach stays predictable and consistent, even though their emotions are changing. Remember that when something worked yesterday suddenly stops working today, it doesn't mean that the strategy's failed. It usually means that the nervous system needs something different in that moment. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about creating a predictable sense of safety for your child over time.